Welcome to the Hire Yourself podcast. My name is Pete Gilfill, and I'm here with my business partner, Nat Truitt. We're all about helping people invest in franchise businesses or become better business owners. Good morning, Nat.
Hey, Pete, how are you doing today?
Oh, I am awesome. We're just plugging away here. I got some exciting news.
I can't even venture a guess.
All right. Besides the puppy, right? So it doesn't get more exciting than a puppy in a household, but that's a story for another time. So, I started looking at, I go to these conferences. I went to the franchise conference. It's great because we get together with 100 different franchise companies. We get to see all these concepts. And so they give us a 5-minute speech. So I come out of there like, I want to invest in this business. I want to invest in this business, right? So I come home and I said, honey, I think I found the business for us to invest in. And besides rolling her eyes and like, oh, here we go again, because my wife, she never, ever wanted us to go into business, right? She wanted me to have a corporate job. So I started telling her about this and it brought back memories. And so today, what I thought we'd talk about is that when I first decided to invest in a franchise, my wife was very nervous. She's like, well, how are we going to do this? You're leaving that corporate pay. And from the standpoint is we have to pay the bills, right? We have to pay the mortgage. We got to feed and clothe these 4 kids we got. How are we going to do that if you start a business? And so today, what I thought we'd do is we talk about the 4 ways to cover your monthly expenses while you're launching a business. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds like a good challenge. I think most people are kind of concerned about.
Yeah, you're right. Well, certainly my wife was, from that standpoint. So let's talk about the 4 ways. So I think you started out kind of like a lot of people do. You started out the business, and so a lot of times what people will do is the first way is they'll leverage working capital in the business. They'll actually, before they're making money, start paying themselves so that they have the money to cover it.
Yeah, I think when you start, there's a couple different strategies, right? You're either, bootstrapping it, which means essentially, there's no extra money and you're just kind of dripping in capital as you need it. You're like finding the money as you kind of go along while you're building your business. And then if you have a little bit more cushion or have some more investors or have a little bit bigger bankroll, then, I think it's always a lot more comfortable to be able to pay yourself, obviously, a salary, because a lot of guys are going from, 6-figure corporate income and then they're going to start something. So it's hard to go from that to zero.
Yeah, well, that's what I did, right? I went from a high-paying corporate job to essentially having no income. And so I think if you use the ROPS program, so if you use your retirement account to fund the business, right? I think you have to pay yourself a salary. Even though you're not making money, you still need to be paying your salary. So part of that is kind of leveraging how you seeded the business with working capital, paying yourself even before, again, you turn a profit. The second way is my favorite way, or at least this is the way I sold my wife to it. So as I told you, my wife was really worried. I mean, we went from having a good corporate salary to nothing. And she couldn't get past this idea that she thought we were going to be homeless and we weren't going to be able to feed our 4 kids and all this despair and stuff like that. And so I created what is called the 2-bucket approach. And so I looked at it as there's a certain amount of capital you need to launch the business, right? So that's one bucket. The second bucket was money set aside from our savings that we had in this bucket that could cover our living expenses or offset our living expenses, right? So if my wife,
for Starbucks and those type of things.
Oh, well, Starbucks is a vital thing with my wife, yes, but also paying the mortgage and electric bill, all that kind of stuff. And so I set it up so that she had a separate account, right? So she could go in and look and see that we had the money to cover it. Now, the way I looked at it is I combined the 2 buckets. I looked at that as the total cost of getting this going, the money to business, and also the capital to offset our lifestyle to cover all those expenses. Have you seen other people do that?
I think I first heard about it from you, Pete, and I love that concept. And since then, we've taught a lot of people kind of how to have a little extra peace of mind with the 2-bucket approach. I think it's kind of genius to have, just identify, all right, this is a bucket of money that's for the startup or living expenses. for that first, whether it's 6, 9, 12, 18 months, 3 years, whatever it might be, right? Whatever you need for your comfort level.
And you could do it. So like I scaled it, right? So the first month I took our full month of expenses out. Well, after 6 months we're making money, then I partially offset our living expenses to where eventually I tapered it off. And so I think it doesn't have to be where it's covering you for a long period of time, but it's used to offset those expenses.
Yeah, it's almost like a gap. It's a gap bucket. So whatever, the business is providing this, and then you have this gap, and then you can take money out of the bucket for that. But yeah, that's a good way to go.
But a lot of people can't conceptualize it because they look at their living off their savings and they don't equate that to money to launch the business. They think, oh, we're just burning through our savings, right? And I tell people that, like, when you're looking for a job, in many cases, you're burning through your savings, or you're burning through your package that you got, right? And so you might as well be investing in yourself. Instead of burning the money looking for a job, invest the money in helping you offset your expenses while you're launching that business.
Well, and you and I have talked a couple of times about this, but I'm not like a math genius or anything, but if you figured out how much savings you'd have to have in order to generate a 6-figure income off the principal, it's a lot of principal, right? A lot of capital. And so where I'm going with this is when you have your own business, it always is going to be a 3 to 5 year push while you're building the business. But eventually there's some light at the end of the tunnel. You have control of your time, your schedule, the team that you build, your employees that you have. And a lot of guys are like, I don't want to retire. I could do this forever. So It's like how I kind of think about it. Like, hey, if you create a business that you can do past, 65 years old, you could do it till you're 75, 85, 90,
Absolutely.
Pass it on to your kids. I think that, that 300,000 of working capital or whatever that, you're kind of investing up front is well worth it many times over.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Because you're setting up your future. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So the third way, we're seeing a lot of this now, right, is what we call the executive model semi-absentee. So you keep your corporate job, you keep your corporate salary, and you start the franchise on the side, right? So you get it going, you put a manager in place, and you pay that manager to be there all the time. Now, you don't have to be there every day. You still need to be minding your business 15 or 20 hours a week. But the idea is that you're keeping that corporate income that allows you to cover your expenses while you're starting the business on the side. We see a lot of that, don't we?
I do. And it's kind of that concept of it takes money to make money. You're going to be investing more, you're going to basically be reinvesting a lot of your profits into management and into additional locations, which is great. Because if you're making huge bank at corporate, I think it makes a lot of sense to keep that security while you're kind of building up your life raft on the side. And then, it's nice to somewhere down the road, it enters the paths intersect. And then you're like, well, absolutely. I don't, it doesn't matter what they pay corporate anymore. I'm just going to go, do my business now.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times people have a hard time as they look at it, having to pay that manager $60,000, because they got their corporate job, but the idea of paying somebody $60,000 to be there it's beyond that. Just they can't get past it. And I tell them, I said, hey, listen, if you could be making $300,000 and you could pay somebody $60,000 to be building this asset for you, building this business, this cash flow for you, why not? It's a great investment, right? Because you're getting more value for your time at that current present situation. So I think that's one piece of it. The second thing is that when you do the executive model semi-absentee and you have that manager, you need to put a little extra capital in the business. You need to capitalize that manager up front.
100%. Yeah, that's going to be a higher higher investment to get that business up and running. But it's time or money, right? So all you get in life is your time. So if you prefer to spend your time at corporate, then you can spend your money investing in management and more infrastructure for your business.
Yeah, well, and that's how you scale too. So, all right, the fourth way, as we look at it, is that I wasn't lucky enough to have this. I think you were smart enough.
Yeah, this was my favorite. That was
all right.
Yeah.
So I'll let you lead with this one. So what's the fourth strategy to cover your expenses?
I always think that the best way to diversify your income is send your spouse to work. So I was fortunate because my wife was at Arthur Andersen out of college, and she was doing great. And so I was in my 20s, and we were looking for a caregiver for my wife's grandmother, and I started researching, and this was like early on in the internet and everything. So, I came across all these senior care companies, and I saw a little tab up there on their website that said franchising, and I clicked on that. What's that? And so that's how I kind of got it to franchising and into senior care all together. But the great thing about having your spouse work is it does, it takes a big load off your shoulders, because kind of like that 2-bucket approach or the semi-absentee, it's like that your household expenses are covered, right? And then you're kind of you're focused 100% on getting the business up and running. So I think if that's an opportunity for somebody, I think that's great. I do think, you have to really put the pedal to the metal and try to, replace your spouse's income. Ideally, that's what we were able to do.
Yeah.
So there's lots of options with that.
Yeah. And I think as you look at this, I think the big thing is that knowing whether you're going to fund it through just hard work, that working capital, or you're going to kind of do it the semi-absentee or the 2-bucket approach. In all cases, you got to go work your butt off, right?
Yeah.
You got to go and treat every day it's like the last day. You got to build the business fast, and you got to do it smart, because eventually it's got to stand by itself, right? And so you can offset it many different ways, your income to cover your expenses, but at the end of the day, you got to build and grow and make a profitable business.
Totally. I remember we used to call senior care run mayor business. So, and I think I told you this once and you laughed at me, but it's literally shaking hands and kissing babies, 40 hours a week while you're building all those relationships. And now everywhere I go in, my town, I know everybody. And, people tease me. They're like, wow, you seem like you know everybody. Well, yeah, it's because I went to the Chamber of Commerce and I literally shook hands and kissed babies, went to the 4th of July parade, all that good stuff to get it up and running.
I'll donate to your campaign to become the mayor. All right. So you got a political donation for me coming. So
yeah. So excellent. What do you think? Circling back to full circle to your wife, what do you think? Where's her head right now? What are you thinking?
I don't want a business. I don't want to be involved in business. I don't want another business. You just do what you're doing, right? So we'll see. But I get so excited and I love businesses. And so, but not so much for her.
I know it's like being a kid in a candy shop sometimes, right? Because you see under the hood of all these up and coming opportunities and see the success that they're having and, just the rapid growth in other areas of the country, and can just picture it. I know my town needs one of these.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. All right, Nat, great discussion today. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Hire Yourself podcast. For more resources, check out our website at hireyourself.com. And remember to subscribe to this podcast to receive each episode. Please leave us a rating, and we'd love to hear your feedback or suggestions for topics.